All right, let's do this. We're running out of time before Salawaki's space here. So we're going to keep running through here, sailing forward under cloudy skies outside, but it is very sunny inside here on a beautiful, calm summer day deep in the nervous system here. It's almost like I get blinded when my dream vision overwhelms my external reality as I describe that to you. Welcome back, Artist Journal, January 31st, 2024. Broadcasting fast from the inner half of the nervous system. Welcome back. My name is Adrian Pocobelli. Just improvising as usual here. So thank you for joining us again as we run through this, episode of wonderful art here. And here is the start with RJ, a pastiche of Edward Hopper of a 1950 work. We're going to look at it in a second. So kind of reminiscent. This is an MP4, which generally I think RJ uses GIFs. So it's actually hard. I can't zoom in too much as a result of it being an MP4. But here kind of, I use the word reservedly, typically, substituting the subject of the work with a computer here and a retro computer. As you can see, if you look up close, a little screensaver on that old retro Mac here, these beautiful colors here. So a beautiful pastiche by RJ here. Tempting to think, based on the color and the treatment and even the format, that this is perhaps an older work that was resurrected, but not sure about that. Not sure at all. And here is the work, Edward Hopper, Cape Cod Morning. And so RJ, of course, calling this Cape Cod Screen. And the screen being, RJ's, I would argue RJ's main subject matter and profound subject, of course, because as our visual experience, think of how it's changed with the advent of the screen, especially in the last 20 years, particularly with phones and high resolution, changing how we visually interface with the world. One could argue, changing our visual experience. How is it changing us? Many people have asked this question. So RJ's work is very much an exploration of the screen and what it means to us as humans, as artists, what it means to art and the representation of art. And here's another, speaking of screens, it's one of my favorite subjects here, the representation of art as mediated by technology. Here, Google, with all these different versions of this painting. These are all the same painting, right? So just another example of how screens are, creating and changing our perceptions. Do you know, again, I've mentioned this story a few times. If you look at the Bellini Doge, maybe. Let me bring it up here. Yeah, so this is actually pretty close to what it is in the National Gallery. But, I actually thought it was closer to this one, the original, that the blue. And so when I saw the original and that it was like this, I was quite taken aback. And to me, that was just another example of how the internet is changing, or at least say Google, it's forming perceptions of art pieces and why it's so important to see artworks in person. As you see, there's practically a green one here, and there are all sorts of variations here. Here it looks quite blue, and here you see there's turquoise. I mean, I'd argue it's even a little bit more gray, the original, if I remember right. So you see all of the variations here. So just an interesting subject in passing. Here's the original Edward Hopper here. A beautiful painting, one might add. I've never actually seen that work before. The light is, the color and the light are beautiful. The composition, there is something truly just very satisfying about this painting. And there, the woman in the house that RJ has replaced with a computer looks off into the light in this kind of beautiful moment there of life. These people now passed on. One assumes, 1950. Let's continue here. RJ, so this is from an exhibition that is on Foundation, part of Next Wave, Pixelland's Drop, the Next Wave collective, and RJ's a part of it. And the question that they're trying to answer is, what is a landscape today? Interesting question. You could go to a museum or gallery and find a very, an identical question But what's beautiful actually is how simple this is. And then using pixel art or pixel lands, this pixel lands drop is a way to explore that. I really recommend taking a look at taking some time to take a look through the collection. So we're going to do that really quickly here. There were a couple of works that didn't show up for me for some reason. This Nicholas Dietrich here, as you see here, maybe it'll show up if I try again. But here are some other works. We'll see if that loads. Here is Element Lee, who we've been looking at, of course, who did the cardboard the other day. This experimental pixel art made on a smartphone. And I think I have this later in a tweet what's going on here, but you see kind of what looks like a camera or a light shining out, and then you see this, part of a landscape, and then everything else hidden from view, basically, or just blank. So Frustrum Culling Garden by Element Lee. Interesting piece, 0.1 ETH. And here is Pixel Rain by, I think that's Vamped, V5MT. And again, looking like put through a couple of processors, one would imagine, or effects here. Cool work here. And we're going to just run through these. We'll see, Nicholas Dietrich isn't loading up for some reason for me today. So we'll come back, hopefully next episode. I did bookmark that for next episode. Blue 281 Nosedive. So just to run through here the rest of this show. So as you can see, interesting piece, interesting take on landscape here. I guess this kind of has a landscape feel to it here too. Let's continue. Datura, Kelp 10. Almost abstract here for Datura, who is always on the edge of representation. Kind of a different feel to that Datura work. Interesting piece. And here, Lucas Lejeune, who we've been looking at, Snake Pit. So this was just minted the other day here as well. And interesting take on landscape. And here is Jerome Alavina, Illusion d'un tout sans fin. Illusion of an everything without end. Interesting, if I translate that correctly. An interesting kind of disintegration or reintegration of what looks like a kind of window with this primordial boiling matter. Who knows actually what's going on here. Interesting piece. 0.1 ETH reserve. And Gozo. You're going to see a couple of works by Gozo this episode. Digital collage using a little bit of stable diffusion. Another take on landscape here with this interesting, I just love the texture and the color and the compositions of Gozo's work. So another beautiful one. This is 0.1 reserve. And here is Vamped again, Gen Garden 1, a black and white pixel art work, moving, dynamic here. And again, kind of looking like maybe a couple of effects put on to effects is what I'd guess here. And here's Francoise Gamma, Lands Cloud, a new one by Francoise Gamma with an interesting piece. Again, static landscape here with a cloud that is moving and just creates this beautiful poetry here of a cloud, one assumes. And that cloud is kind of a light green. So all to say, cool show there. Going on Foundation. Salawaki, see you later. So we're going to have a Twitter space here in a couple of hours. So excited about that. And of course, Salawaki makes a lot of video art and there's a lot of humor. So it should be a ton of fun. We're going to learn more about Salawaki and what Salawaki is up to. I'm very excited about that. And a big thank you also to Dina Chang, who has been filling in for Runetoon the last 3 shows. I couldn't think of when Runetoon said he couldn't make it because he's going to Asia on vacation. Dina Chang was the first person I asked, and I'm just thrilled that she accepted, and it's been a ton of fun. Just really cool and fun. So again, this is Salawaki, works in progress. Just so you can see, playing with CGI here. I think this is a Salawaki character, and I'm not sure if that's her. We'll have to ask Salawaki. And kind of on this almost Tron-like grid here, again, playing with this kind of CGI-like software. And again, always a little bit of humor in here. A ton of people, responding to the event there. Salawaki is popular. Please don't take my sunshine away. This is also released too on a still, interestingly, on Object. So kind of a cool work here too. Again, kind of having a CGI feeling to it with these big hands here and looking off into the light. Again, always with a little bit of humor in it, if not a lot. So a couple of comments here on last show. Tom Bombattle, thanks, Adrian. I was pleased to hear your feedback with that beautiful pixel art skull. Always awesome from Bombattle. Sulkian, who does the wild, again, kind of CGI works. Thank you very much. I send you a big hug. Great to hear from you, Sulkian. And yeah, you might recognize the style from the little avatar in there. Really great to hear from you. Score, also known as Saiko. Thank you for reviewing Emma. It's a very interesting topic that digital artists are challenging the physical presentation. This year I have opportunities to try physical too. Excellent. Maybe it's a transition for many artists. I think of my friend Tom when I had, who used to work, I doubt he's there anymore, back in 2018. I should reach out to Tom. He used to work at Esther Schipper, which is it is a blue chip gallery here in Berlin, probably top 3 in terms of status. And my friend Tom, who was working at Esther Schipper at the time, great guy, he came to my show that I was doing at Factory Berlin. And I was doing all these phone works that I had made and printing them out and put them all over this kind of cool workspace in Prenzlauer Berg, for those that know their Berlin. I think it's still there, that workspace. All to say, he checked it out and he came to me. He's like, I like the show. Cool. A couple of works I really, was into. Have you ever thought about doing sculpture? And I was like, no, I haven't really thought about doing sculpture. And he was basically saying, maybe you should consider doing a sculpture as a way of just kind of, again, it's a way of increasing credibility. It's a way of just kind of increasing your range and it was almost like a PR advice. Like maybe you should put out a sculpture, not from an artistic point of view, but just from a purely PR point of view. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And so if you get the opportunity to do physical Psycho, do it. I think it just increases your credibility as an artist. So well worth it. And here we go. Thank you so much. I would love to see that. I will start preparing soon, and I'll let you know when I have some photos. Absolutely. I'd love to see it, and I'll happily show them here. Also, a very interesting comment here. Jamie Lynn Barbarian. The algorithm worked well this time. Highly grateful to find this channel. What a treat this was. So, of course, a lot of the action of this show has been happening on X in terms of audience, as many of you know. And the growth here, we continue to just have a few hundred, we might say, on each video, which is great. I'm thrilled. But it does make me wonder a couple of things. Low Trippy or Trippy Collector was suggesting to me a few months ago, maybe you want to turn on the ads because maybe Google isn't pushing this show because you don't have the ads on. Pocobelli, you might be thinking you're helping the artists and the audience by not putting the ads, but he was saying maybe you should put the ads because maybe that helps the artists in the long run. An interesting comment. So when I see this, it does make me wonder, could this show be growing? Because I think it would be really exciting to really grow this show on YouTube. And then who knows, maybe you're back to 4, even 5 times a week if all of a sudden this show is making money. Right now, I'd think I'd make $1 a show, so I haven't done the ads. But it does make me wonder. So anyways, thank you, Jamie Lynn Barbarian. Glad to hear the algorithm worked. And of course, there is still the show on Twitter, which is ad-free. Were I to introduce ads, I do it with a lot of reservation, though, because I think of my mom. And I don't want to give my ads to my mom. So anyways, interested to hear feedback if anybody has any. So interesting comments here on last show. Let me just show you here. King Joffrey Ballet, a perfect show. Thank you. But I should say your joke of only casting Monday, Wednesday, Friday did not go over well. The community panicked. Quote, more time to work on my art sounded legitimate. So I think folks bought it for a little while. Nice one. So not too excited about the Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. I have to say it's been fabulous so far. My Tuesday normally is a 14-hour day, and I'm not even exaggerating. 8 to 10, sometimes longer. So it was pretty nice this Tuesday to just have a normal work day. So here, so all to say though, and I completely appreciate the comment, and it was quite funny, and nothing's written in stone. It's kind of back to this idea where if this show was to actually grow on YouTube and bring in money, then it's kind of like, then things start to happen where all of a sudden you can do it 5 days a week. All of a sudden you can do timestamps, right? And all this sort of stuff. So anyways, I appreciate the comment, and great to hear. I appreciate the feedback. And really nice comment. Mika Oladef, thank you for the comment. Beautiful work. We have another one today. 8 Ann, thanks for highlighting the neutral drop on particle collection. Feel free to shoot me a DM if you want more info. So we're going to look closer here. Thank you for that, 8 Ann, and great to hear from you. We're going to see more information on the drop in a comment below here where it's kind of itemized more clearly for us. So I totally appreciate that. And if anybody's wondering, here, 8N1326, maybe Ban is how it's pronounced. Brain Dead, you made me shy. Great to hear from you, and glad to hear. And I think we might have a work by, I'm not sure though. I'm not sure if we have a work by you today, Brain Dead. Ellie Lowe, great, thanks for the mention, Adrian. This gives a feeling of involvement to something big. Well, I'm really happy to hear that. And Ellie Lowe's work, it really reminds me of the kind of vibe that I saw in the video work when I first landed in Berlin at the Berlin Biennale. There was one, was it in June 2016. And there's a really edgy Berlin Biennale with a lot of edgy video. I think Julia Stoshik collection also put on show. Anyways, Ellie Lowe's work to me would really, it would work within that context quite well and easily. I see it kind of, I don't want to say necessarily, I guess a crossover artist to a certain degree that would go just fine in a contemporary art gallery in Berlin where you wouldn't even bat an eyelash, so to speak. So anyways, great to hear from you, and just fantastic work as usual. Denise, thank you for the comment. And Nacho, here is the more in-depth discussion here on Ripcache and what's going on with the drop. I just wanted to clarify a few points, and maybe our explainer post was not super clear. Thanks for the mention. You are welcome. There's only one neutral. I mean, the piece is so gorgeous, right? And I was looking at this piece, and I was thinking to myself, you know, at first I was like, maybe there's no manual work, but I suspect there is manual tinkering here when I look closer and looked again at this piece. Maybe it's crunched down first, it's analyzed by Ripcache, and then maybe a few moves here and there, I suspect. Anyways, let's continue here. There's only one neutral physical piece and one neutral NFT by Ripcache. So there's a neutral, so there's a physical and a digital. The 64 particles, the NFTs sold by particle, represent ownership over the physical. So it is divided into 64 particles. So there are 64 owners of the physical, or at least 64 particles you can buy. Theoretically, one person could buy all the 64, I imagine. Particle owners can vote on whether to scratch or not. Remember, we're looking at the physical work that you can scratch down to get the code, I believe, for the physical. After a year, the voting outcome may trigger the scratching of the physical piece, decoupling the physical and digital versions of neutral. So interesting. So if it's decided to scratch the physical piece, this decouples the physical and digital versions. If that happens, particle owners will get a second particle representing ownership over the digital version of neutral. So it almost seems, I wonder if it kind of sacrifices, because it decouples. So it almost makes you wonder if you are, it makes it sound like it is sacrificing the first particle, which is the digital ownership over the physical, to keep the digital, if you follow me. So I think that's what's going on here. And finally, in both cases, physical and digital, particle owners are able to consider any buy bids on either. So all to say, this is all sellable. These particles are all sellable. Should a bid be submitted, and so if someone bids on the work, owners can vote on whether to accept or whether or not to accept that bid and sell the artwork. I hope that clarifies. I think that helps a ton, Nacho. So thank you for doing that, and happy to share that here. And just a great looking series at the end of the day. Really cool work. Clint Fulkerson, the bots are out of control, so just kind of funny. They continue here, the love bots here, with these very positive AI bots on X that are just, I think, I don't know if I'd say it's great, but it's, as I was saying, could be worse with all of these. At least they're positive. Can you imagine if they're negative? Hard to imagine. Okay, so I used ChatGPT 3.5. So I must not be logged in because I actually have GPT-4. But let's look here. So I just wanted to dig a little deeper on the definitions of surrealism because I was speaking off the top of my head, and I just wanted to nail things down a little bit more here since it's in discussion. There's a lot here, but I do want to touch on some of it. First manifesto was published in 1924. There was a second Surrealist manifesto in 1930. They outlined the principles and goals of surrealism, but they do not provide multiple definitions of surrealism. So maybe that's my edit on what happened here. And I do think, actually, there's no question it evolved and changed. Instead, they offer a comprehensive perspective on the movement's ideology. So here it's first, it's clearly defined as a definition, as you see here. Surrealism, a noun. In other words, a person, a place, or a thing, in this case, a thing. Psychic automatism in its pure state. So, by which one proposes to express verbally, by means of the written word, or in any other manner, such as drawing, the actual functioning of thought. So, working without reason or without rhyme or reason, so to speak, without any control, just raw thought. Dictated by the thought, in the absence of any control exercised by reason, exempt from any aesthetic or moral concern. And this was also very important, because if you can get raw thought, and I think it's a debatable question as to how, can you just decide not to impose reason? Are you able to even do that on whatever you're doing? So this is where randomness comes in, and even like John Cage, I'd argue like that, randomness and random tools using dice, whatever, that helps you get to these, to get to, maybe more raw ways of thinking. So this is quite important, though, free from any aesthetic or moral concern, because, and you go back to Sade, the Marquis de Sade, right? Because clearly there's no moral concern in Sade's work. If you look at, the 120 Days or Justine or Juliet, 18 plus, and clearly there's no moral concern there. And so what does it become? As I titled an essay I wrote when I was doing after art school, when I did the master's in English, transcribing the nervous system is ultimately what this is doing. One could argue, at least this is what it's being attempted to do. So this is why, again, Marquis de Sade becomes this kind of pivotal player. One could argue even, because we saw Jonathan Swift in the black humor idea predating, but here, just having this raw transcribing, cataloging the whatever deep, dark fantasies that Sade had in his head. Okay, and so a kind of qualitative science. We're back to this idea of art as a form of knowledge. Okay, art being able to provide qualitative information, qualitative knowledge that science cannot. Because again, how does science measure your dreams, your inner space, right? So let's continue here. In the second Surrealist Manifesto, 1930, Breton expanded on the ideas presented in the first. So they just said it doesn't change, and now they're saying it changed. This must be ChatGPT 3.5. He continued to emphasize the importance of psychic automatism and spontaneity in the creation of art. He also discussed the role of dreams, the unconscious, and the irrational in Surrealist works. So I would argue this is the Dali influence. Of course, the paranoid critical method that we were discussing yesterday, and of course, Dali's earlier surrealist phase is very Freudian, very psychoanalytical. So, and you could argue Ernst was also bringing psychoanalysis. They were all reading Freud, but Dali in particular was very Freudian in how he was approaching his art and this whole, quote unquote, psychic automatism. So again, the paranoid critical method does come into this second definition with the importance placed on dreams, the unconscious, and the irrational. Surrealism is a movement aimed to liberate the creative process from the constraints of rational thought, allowing for a more direct expression of the unconscious mind. So more of an emphasis on the unconscious. Okay. Was there a third manifesto? So again, ChatGPT being a little deceptive there on the first, saying there were two. The Manifesto of Surrealism 1934, there is a third one, and although it's less well known compared to the first two. It was published in the magazine Cahiers d'Art, or kind of art notebooks, and marked a further development in Breton's thought. So here, Breton delved deeper into the ideas about the role of surrealism in everyday life and politics. And again, we're starting to inch closer to J.G. Ballard, right? Who, again, in the introduction to Crash, which is a manifesto of sorts, okay? For, of course, Crash being the, eroticism in car crashes. Again, we're past this idea, which sounds very morally dubious, right? Back to, again, forgetting moral considerations in this attempt to understand human nature. So we're starting to get closer to Ballard here. And again, and what does Ballard do? Just to wrap up the point here. Ballard takes, his interpretation of Dali, which I've mentioned before, but for new viewers, J.G. Ballard's interpretation, and I'd argue reinterpretation of Dali, which even Dali didn't quite express so directly, I would argue, was basically to, as we were mentioning last episode, to treat the world as a solidified dream and apply Freudian analysis, or the dream work, the structure of Freud's analysis, to external reality, right? In other words, to treat it like a dream that needs to be psychoanalyzed, to be understood. And so, as he says in that introduction, what does he say? Freud's classic distinction between the manifest, or the surface, between the manifest and the latent contents, the hidden, the latent, between the manifest and the latent contents of the dream need now be applied to the external world of so-called reality. So again, Freud divided our dreams into the manifest, the surface, as I discussed last episode, but this is crucially important, to the surface content, the appearance, the weird dream that doesn't make any sense, and then the analyst is trying to get to the latent or underlying reality. What is actually going on with this weird dream you had, right? So it's kind of this Platonic appearance and reality distinction. Ballard said basically, this is Dali, according to Ballard. That is what he's doing. He's treating the world as a dream that needs to be analyzed, and that this is a useful tool. And further, applying it to the media landscape, okay? And this, we start to see hints of this in Breton in the third manifesto. So you start to see, I would argue the seeds of Ballard here, and who I think clearly read all of these manifestos. And of course, Breton emphasizing Marxism and communism. And of course, there's Salvador Dali on the front page, on the cover of Time magazine, living the capitalist dream. So of course, they had a falling out. And yes, so finally here, the mission of surrealism to create a more liberated and just society. And there is an argument to be made here that the more we understand our own nature, the more equipped we are to live in a just society, one could argue here. So not a crazy thought here. And finally, and how did he define surrealism? So basically the same. And finally, here, this is interesting as well. This is what I wanted to highlight. So this is in the third definition. Again, starts with the original pure psychic automatism, which again, Ballard was quite skeptical of, and we're about to jump to the next thing here. But again, thought dictated in the absence of all control exerted by reason, and then a philosophy. It's the belief in the superior reality of certain forms of previously neglected associations. So again, in a sense, we prioritize, as the later post-structuralists would probably argue, reason over irrational. That reason is somehow more legitimate as a way of thinking. And here, this surrealism as a philosophy is showing skepticism, according to Breton, the Third Manifesto. In the omnipotence of the dream and the disinterested play of thought, it leads to the permanent destruction of all other psychic mechanisms and to their substitution by those in conformity with surrealist thought. Here we go. I believe in the future resolution of these two states, dream and reality, which are seemingly so contradictory into a kind of absolute reality, a surreality, if one may so to speak. And this is where we get Ballard's, finally, definition of surrealism, where inner and outer space meet and fuse. Okay, so here you see it right in the third definition here. So, quite interesting. I don't want to go too far. We have the paranoid critical method here, but basically exactly as I was saying last time, where it basically celebrates the irrational, and then once these irrational images were brought to the forefront of the artist's mind, Dali suggested using a critical approach to refine and give form to the chaotic and irrational elements. So one of the experiments apparently he would do is, hold on to a penny or something, and then when he fell asleep, the penny would hit the floor, and then he'd wake up in whatever image was in his mind, and then start to apply critical thinking to whatever irrational image was in his mind as he was falling asleep, for example. So let's leave it there, but I want to dive deeper, and there's one more thing I want to look at here, which kind of relates, interestingly, somewhat. Apple Vision Pro review, this is the future of computing and entertainment, so a very positive review out of CNBC here. Starts at $3,500, easily the most fun I've had in years with a new product. Lacks apps. So was expecting to be skeptical about it, but ultimately I was very impressed with it. The Vision Pro offers a new kind of experience Apple calls spatial computing. You sit in your world while looking at a digital one and then plop different apps around you. You can work games, movies, surf the web. The Vision Pro has a lot of power to do what you'd expect from an Apple device. I'm only scratching the surface, but here's the gist. This is an entire new type of computing, providing a whole new world of experience. It feels like the future. So someone who's going in as a skeptic going in, which kind of makes it even more persuasive. What's good? Skeptical when I first met it. Mixed reality. It was super sharp and colorful screens. It allows the world around you by default to see the world around you by pass-through technology, and it has a fast processor. So everything, that we sort of thought. But it's kind of interesting here because, again, it's almost like it's modeling inner space, so to speak. Like we have this layer, it's almost like dreams. It's not physical, right? But it's not identical to inner. But it's almost like it's modeling, I would argue, inner space here. So virtual travel, when you're working on your computer with this thing on, it can feel like you're at the beach, which is maybe the most attractive thing to me, to be perfectly frank. So all to say, it's another one of these watch this space. You can watch movies in 4 different 3D landscapes, still prefer 2D. So all to say, pretty interesting here. A very in-depth review on CNBC, spatial photos. So all to say, very interesting. We can't go through this whole thing, but we have to highlight it here. If this is in fact true, it could be, again, a kind of a important point, especially as we focus on screens here, as we open the show with RJ. Continuing on, Foundation. Back to our bailiwick here. We're going multi-chain. Any guesses? So Foundation is going multi-chain. Interesting question. A lot of people are guessing Tezos. I could see Solana. If they go Bitcoin, that would be pretty rad. They should just, but easier said than done, a lot of this. Rob from Foundation, the future of Web3 is multi-chain, and that is where Foundation is headed. So should be interesting to find out there how that's all going to work, actually. Ryan at Taya, multi-chain is difficult, so don't underestimate the workload involved. Look at Rarible. for how an ETH Tezos bridge was done in practice. And they eventually abandoned that, from my understanding of Rarible, that they no longer support Tezos because I think it was too much work. They have to constantly keep up with updates on multiple chains, and it can slow things down quite a bit. Going to bigger chains may help to get liquidity, but it will come with strings. But I think we can probably all agree that if you're going to branch out, it should be done with a clear objective in mind. I mean, Magic Eden does a pretty good job from what I can tell. Like it seems to me like they just have 3 different websites. Is sort of my impression. It's probably the easiest way to do it, which are all kind of joined in one website. In the bigger picture, the general public knows very little about NFTs even now, and I think the legitimacy argument doesn't really matter that much right now. What people are waiting for is something that just works. And at least for myself, a tangible product is my criteria for adding more liquidity. Funding status is not important for people like me. And I've got to give the people at Taya credit, Ryan, it's a way more functional website than Taya used to be. It used to be difficult. It would load. It would kind of, I don't want to say it crashed, but now they've got it. Taya is it works very well right now. Just a nice comment here from 360. Haven't sold any piece of art in almost 2 years. We just create over here. And yeah, that is the artist's life, oftentimes. So again, another illustration of how good we do have it here in the digital world, where like this isn't uncommon at all for physical artists, I would argue. You know, people who dedicate their lives to art making and barely sell anything, or maybe they're performance artists, dancers. Good for you, 360. Sabato, in love with these physical prints by Strano. The plotter works really hit different in real life. So cool plotter works here from Strano to Sabato, and looking really cool. Nothing like physical art. Here's a cool work. This looks like an emulation of physical art. We'll see what happened here. This is RJ Recreation. In 1953, Robert Rauschenberg erased a drawing by abstract expressionist Willem de Kooning to create a piece entitled Erase de Kooning Drawing. He actually asked for de Kooning's permission, actually, to erase it. I remember watching an interview where he told the story. Recreated Rauschenberg turns this erased piece into a series of recreations through dithering algorithms. So continuing on the conceptual front here, nice touch here with the broken pixel frame, quite like that. Also here, and here kind of dithered versions of these erased de Kooning drawings. A concept art piece, and again, playing with randomness to a certain degree. So you see that art, it really tells a story. The history of art, especially in, you can go back from sad. There are different traditions. Here's more dithering. Just cool work by RJ again. Let's just continue here. Okay, so RJ on Solana, Andrew Wyeth, Christina's World, so another pastiche. Kind of almost looks like a movie of sorts. And so here we see a computer in the background, interesting landscape, solid blue floor seemingly with a woman kind of crawling. I didn't get the chance to bring this up, but interesting piece here for one sol on Solana from RJ. Interesting post from Uxine, kind of a looser painterly, kind of painted in a looser way with kind of different colors here, and very cool kind of pixelated skull on the flag here. Interesting contrast going on here. Kind of a rougher Uxine here. Really cool looking work, kind of playing with color a little bit there too. And here's another one by Uxine. And again, nice contrast with this kind of painterly look with these big, seemingly painted pixels here. So nice work there. I thought the composition was pretty hilarious here too, with just like this drape with a computer here, almost like a still life that you'd find in some 18th or 19th century academic drawing exercise. Hilarious. Okay, Lex Doom, the premiere. Inspired by an X interaction on January 24th, when a bot declared the movie title perfectly describes my dating life. Can't wait. Some more of these love bots. So here, I thought just kind of a cool work here of people in a theater with maybe, hard to say, these pixels though are pretty interesting. It's tempting to see some AI in here. Interesting piece, though. People in a movie theater. This is 0.02 ETH. Total minted, 3 out of 5, so there are 2 left. From Lex Doom. Here's one by Louis Osborne. Deep in thought. How are we doing here? We have time. Cool work by Louis Osborne here on Object. And here, kind of mysterious a little bit. I mean, so a shower, but where the water is rising, interestingly. And so almost kind of a menacing, melancholy work a little bit. Great texture here. And you see these kind of shower tiles in the background, deep in thought. So I guess the person here, thinking deeply in the shower. Interesting piece. Uxine picking one up there. 10 Tezos edition of 40 just came out. And a really nice piece by Katerina Create, Daisy Chains. Kind of trying different colors out here. A little bit with this really nice kind of muted pink and muted green, and even the yellow. The color is spectacular, and the Katerina Creates kind of character here with the big white hair, providing a bit of a break here from all the color and everything. Just a really nice piece here. This is an edition of 10, and looks like it's sold out at a Tezos 50. Great work. Bridget, New York City. It's always a good sign. Bridget, New York City, I think a bit of a flipper, but with really great taste from my perspective. It's always a good sign if Bridget, New York City is buying your work, because it means she sees real value there, is my impression. Here, cool work by Ezra Eslin. So new illustration here, always kind of playing with violence and satire, and violence and satire, we might say, and the spilled drink and blood, maybe kind of making fun of dating, perhaps. And here, time flies and pointing the gun, maybe almost a mental picture here. Hard to say, but all to say, a cool piece here by Ezra Eslin. This is 25 Tezos edition of 25, and let's see, there are 12 left. And this will very likely sell out pretty quickly. So get it while you can. Look at how beautiful this is. So just, you see all the detail, and you gotta love how the yellow and the black there. Just really nice. So all to say, let's not freeze the computer here. Out for Kaffee and Kuchen, as they'd say in Germany, coffee and cake. Gabby Walter. Here's just an interesting work here, using, again, the Mickey Mouse with the broken ear character, and a bit of pastiche. And the crash test dummies there. This is on Instagram. So cool work from Gabby Walter. And here's another one by Nuv1914. What would you call this? Maybe a rocking horse or something. Interesting subject matter. And look at this outrageous line going across the sky here. Just more very interesting, edgy work from Nuv1914. This is an edition of 1, and it sold to Guru Hyena for 10 Tezos after an hour. Here's another interesting pixel art work. This is by Working Class, and in collaboration maybe with OK Digital. That Was Wonderful is the title. And here we see a little bit more seemingly violence. Here's a skull, a guy with a skull playing the piano, a little bit of blood, and then this interesting kind of surreal dance with a little bit of blood here as well. Crown of Thorns, nice clouds, interesting kind of ambitious composition, cigar. And here it looks like Microsoft Paint at work here. So interesting piece here, interesting clothing, cloud clothing there, reflecting the sky. Interesting piece, 6 Tezos from Working Class. Cool title. And here's The Isolationist with an interesting, what looks like physical work here, but sometimes combining the two though, so it's never too clear. This one looks pretty physical though, doesn't it? So, and here, let's look at the bottom. Seems like there's something interesting, almost like a bug, going up to this kind of what looks like a big head here. Angelic Hierarchy. Interesting title, 38 Tezos on primary. And there are, how many left here? 5 left. So always selling for a lot there. Always doing very well from, let me just bring this up here, from The Isolationist. And continuing on, I thought this was great. Mr. M. Suksu, Hi bots, on a trip to try new things, on which platform should I mint? So I never saw which platform Suksu decided. Suksu. Great piece. Almost started with this. If I knew where it was minted, I might have started. Very, very cool piece. Great color, by the way. Let's continue here. Here's another one by Suksu. Available on mint.fun. This is an older work. So, of course, mint.fun is a Zora platform. So kind of a mushroom person, gnome in this kind of airbrush style. Very cool. Here's Pomelo. Endless affiliation with the dreamlike realm. So kind of a surreal work here as well, as we see clouds at the bottom and a door on the floor. Very interesting piece from Pomelo, who often does those works with the audio. So trying something different to Tezos edition of 11. And here is Luciana Guerra. The Vision of Tundale is my second artwork for NFT Factory Paris. So that is coming up in February, I believe. So here we go. And interesting work here. So kind of almost kind of halfway between the abstracts and the Bosch-inspired works. So interesting piece here. Kind of has a bit of a medieval feel in these almost marionettes here. Again, kind of evokes a little bit of a Hieronymus Bosch, but just an echo and classic Luciana Guerra colors here. Interesting piece. Nice format too. Nice wide format. Again, looks like it's almost made in the 16:9 ratio for perhaps a TV there, or a big screen. Here's Yuri J with a really interesting experiment. Let's see what they say. Just a sunrise. So you see a photo here. See the photo? And it's a sunrise, and then Yuri J's work put over top of it, so to speak. And then you see the big mosaic filter in the background there. So really cool work again from Yuri J. And Yuri J tweeted this out, I think, kind of highlighted this on X. Vitbit, Apple Tree, interesting piece here. And yeah, would hang really well in a Yuri J show. So this is Vitbit doing a tree. And I thought pretty interesting work here. Apple Tree. This is 5 Tezos edition of 10. Can accept Yuri J and Ahek. So a nice group of people collecting the work here. And let's continue as we run through this episode here. So we looked at this work by Gozo, The Incident, and here we have another work on X, which was interesting. So almost like a coffin and a flower here. And this is just a study. So a work in progress, perhaps, or just a study. And I think Curio Fringe retweeted this one. Iteration, B Leaf, free mint on our Zora. So iteration with a cool cringe queen, digital multimedia artist shown in Tokyo and New York, aesthetics and vibes. So yeah, definitely has that kind of magical, almost early 80s feel to it. With these flowers and kind of this laser light in the light in the background here, and the planets and everything. So here it is on Zora, a free mint, 20 minted so far, and there's Curio Fringe down with it and into it. So let's keep going here. Mumble Boy, BB Queen, and here again, digital collage. So interesting experiment, a little bit of guitars here, so a bit of a musical theme on this one from Mumble Boy. As we continue here, more interesting collage. Here is Wasteman Goldminovich, Tez Life, with an interesting, maybe a parody of a certain kind here. Someone on the double bicycle here with the Tezos, and I'm not exactly sure the joke, but I'm sure. And here is the duck in what looks like a puddle. Maybe this is snow. I'm not sure what's going on here, but it's kind of nice, isn't it? Interesting composition. Rolling with Tezos, MFers be trippin'. 3 Tezos edition of 15 and almost sold out. So other people are getting it. Cool work as usual from Wasteman Goldminovich. Here's Hasdrubal Waffle with a single, Swolfam. So a new one from Hasdrubal here. Let's see what it says. Lift, laugh, and love. So this wonderfully transformed text here. And here you see maybe it's a family out swimming at the beach here. Or wait, they're lifting weights, as you can see here. So interesting, 10 megabytes here, transferred to AHEC on January 30th. So very cool work there. I just discovered actually a work I showed like a couple of weeks ago was sent to me by Hasdrubal Waffle, one of those singles. AHEC actually let me know this morning. So that is great. Big shout out to Hasdrubal Waffle, awesome artist. Sean Luke, Dimension Bridger. So another new work. This is on Foundation from Sean Luke. So again, playing with this kind of square frame with this time kind of cycling down in the middle and cycling up in the frame. And again, kind of abstract shapes on this one. Dimension Bridger. So this is minted January 21st with a reserve of 0.27, quarter of an ETH. And we saw this one by Element Lee. This is part of the show we're looking at there, Pixellands. And here's a couple more by Element Lee. Interesting colors. This is Street Cross, 200 by 200 pixels. So very small work. Again, experimental pixel art on the smartphone, as far as I understand. And here you see these great colors here, a little car in the bottom left. And here's more work. This was posted on X. And as you see here, playing with color. Light ray. This green light palette was nice, so I did it again. And of course, with digital, you can do that. So here is the beige version, and here is the green version. So experimenting with these really cool greens. And Brain Dead. So there are works by Brain Dead in this show today. Ways of Seeing, Part 1, a normal person's way of seeing, point of view, as we see here, looking outwards. And then Ways of Seeing, Part 2, an anxious person's point of view. I thought quite accurate, actually. The anxious person is kind of focused on their inside, on themselves. So in memory of John Berger. So maybe this is an artist or maybe a friend of the artist. These are editions of 1 for 20 Tezos each. Interesting pieces. Here's Françoise Gamma Primboul with some kind of geometric pixel art abstractions here, just experimenting. And interesting colors, nice black background. Primboul, and that is 3 Tezos edition of 20. And here's Haiti Rocket, PPP. So again, playing with the old Mac selection operating tool, cursor, and looking like a Petsky work. Going back to the roots a little bit with some of these Petsky works here. So nice piece here. And what happened here? Edition of 2. And here's Armilk, Tired Pixels number 68. So here, Babylon is in danger, calls Shiva, Allah, Jesus, or Odin. So interesting work here with some flashing pixels in the background here, and interesting frame. Almost a little bit of ASCII or Petsky text too, for good measure here. So interesting piece, 16 Tezos, looks like it's sold out, if I'm not mistaken. 1 on secondary for 16, edition of 10. And here's Chaz with another cool arcade work. This is called Rampage. Kind of has a little bit of a Donkey Kong or something, King Kong maybe vibe. And here we see an arcade game and everything. Interesting background there too. Edition of 1. Which is pretty cool, for 25 Tezos, sold to Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata. Cool, 1 of 1 from Chaz. And here is a 1 of 1 from Yuji, 250 Tezos, Conjunction. So going with a bit of an astronomical theme, and as well down here. I may go to Canada. I need to figure out, there's a solar eclipse in North America, I think April 8th. So for those that don't know, there's some cool diskettes there for good measure. For those that don't know, solar eclipses are a big deal, at least for those that have seen them. I haven't seen them, but I remember watching a lecture on solar eclipses. And once you see one, it's a surreal moment. And a lot of these people will chase these things around the world once you experience one. So if you're in North America, something to look out for on April 8th, as far as I understand. I may travel to Canada at that time. I'm going to look into that today. Violet Trip, obey.exe. So again, using kind of these windows and this kind of dithered monster figure here. Nice, cool, kind of minimal 2 colors here. Strong red, stable diffusion, and After Effects. Interesting. I never would have guessed. So I suppose, again, remember we were talking about it's very powerful because all of a sudden you have, it's going that extra step because here Violet Tripp gets the, output in Stable Diffusion, a cool video, AI video, but then you put it through what's probably dithering, and then all of a sudden it's more of a GIF than an AI work. I didn't even realize AI was involved. Very interesting. Celestial Fall, this is by Endless Mason. So maybe Mason the Third or Mason, I assume the same account. So interesting experimentation here with this Icarus-like figure falling from the sky. A very interesting piece here. Celestial Fall. Before the ascent of Ditheria, Celestials had fallen. This is One Sol Reserve. And here is a work by Strano, Unknown Destination. That is a cool title here. And as we see here, just a cool kind of, it's not quite abstract, but a cool kind of virtual space here. Always looking like you're heading towards somewhere, but never quite getting there. Interesting. Continuing on, Gogolitis with some op art. And The Horizon, pixel art by Gogolitis. So interesting piece here. A couple of offers coming in, edition of 30. Almost having a bit of a Acid Boy vibe. And of course, Acid Boy chimes in. I couldn't resist. Not as good as yours, though. You got to shrink the effect just right. So pretty hilarious here. So Acid Boy responding. That's great. Continuing on, Lucas Lejeune. So we saw work by Lucas Lejeune at the top of the episode. We've been looking at Lucas's work the last few shows. New work on Tez, stable rig, 11 megabytes. Quite a large file. I'm surprised, actually. So here, more animated abstract in black and white, kind of vector-looking work here. And continuing on, Santiago Ruao, Surprise. And so going under the account Ashen, and this is an edition of 1 for 25 Tezos, actually. So 1 of 1 here by this interesting abstract artist here. And here we see a few variations. Let's look up close. Look at how huge this file is. And some nice gradients and everything. Very prolific artist, cool colors, nice frame. And interesting how the frame kind of disappears here at the bottom. It turns into black and into white. Surprise, cool title. A few more abstracts here. This is Ranixdeer, who's going to be on the Spaces in, I think, a couple of weeks. Actually, or maybe a week from now. I'll have to look. I think might be next guest. Euphoria, Ranixdeer. So more works here. I think more minimal abstract works using gradients, light. And so I think this is part of a new series here. Kind of a lot of pastels, interestingly. So interesting pieces here. Euphoria from Ranixdeer in the post. And let's continue. This is on exchange.art. This is Noisy Coyote. Brother Cassette Typewriter, red and black ink. So I didn't realize this is a physical. This is a physical work. Let's see if it loads up from this artist here. Give it another second. Yeah, not sure it's going to work. So if we look here, the artist, again, is Noisy Coyote, and I guess these are typewriters. Here we go. Or typewriter characters. Here you go. Wow. Okay. So here you can see this is why it was taking so long to load. And let's just look at so interesting combination of typewriter and mark making and like paintbrush. All in red and black, unifying the two. Quite an interesting piece here. Noisy Coyote. Very cool. That is on Solana. Feels flip mode, so just kind of a cool, I guess it's an animated abstract. It almost looks non-abstract or representational. Hard to say. Cool piece from Feels. Here's the work by Mika Oladev. Great color. Love the purple. Love the violet in the background. And again, one of these, interestingly pixelated figures here with these great gradients in the background. And as you can see, the great thing about GIF here is we can kind of freeze it here every so often. Just interesting digital noise to a certain degree here. Another cool piece by Mika Oladev. Here is Brown. And we looked at some of Brown's works the other day. A huge file here, playing with different kinds of pixelation here. So interesting digital abstract from Brown. Some interesting work from LB. I thought this looked great. This also could have started the show. Look how beautiful that is. Input 2, just a screenshot. Looks like a beautiful painting, doesn't it? Has great texture here and everything. Really, really nice piece just across the whole thing. Even the edges here, really nice and not perfectly done. You know, feels very organic and analog. Great piece here. 3 Tezos, Regrets, cool title too. Here's another one by LB, Where I Go to Stop Dreaming, another great title. This is 3 Tezos, edition of 15. Kind of animated abstract, I'd say, almost like a mask here in the triangle. Interesting gradient there too. And here is John Cates, Glitch Western Cowboy. And this is an edition of 25 for 10 Tezos. And more interesting glitch here with the cowboy figure. I think John Cates has used the cowboy figure quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken. Kazuhiro Ehara. So back on the scene here, very experimental artist here. You might recognize some of these kind of mark making here with the pixels and kind of brush work. Interesting kind of more muted palette to a certain degree here. Almost kind of a chrome feeling to it and kind of changing to green. Very interesting piece. This is 23 Tezos, edition of 10, and 1 selling so far. And continuing on, Eitzo Bear. So Eitzo, of course, who did all those portraits of artists and the furniture series. Here's an edition of 15 for 12 Tezos. And of course, this great masking with these super rich video works here. These super rich colors and textures and everything. Video bear on, or sorry, a teddy bear seemingly on the ground. 12 Tezos. Here's another one by Klaus, composition number 102. So we've broken through 100 here. See if this loads up. Kind of multi-layering compositions, almost putting compositions on top of each other here. So here's one, and this sold to Crypto Forager for 21 Tezos. This one was gorgeous, and this probably sold too. Spritz, 21 Tezos. So it continues here for Klaus. Beautiful piece. Kind of has a bit of a 80s, that early 80s vibe we were commenting on earlier. Here's Kiro with some very cool works, Pink Panther inspired works. Pink Wall. These are on foundation. Playing with paint here as well as a way to mask. Really nicely done. This beautiful analog video glitchery. Really cool piece, cool loop. And let's continue. I think we have another one here. Another playing with the same theme. This looks great here too. This is a reserve of 0.05. Playing with a square composition. I like the white, kind of this rich white gray, and then painting over top like a canvas here. Just very, very cool. Looking good. And Inavare. And so there's another series, Analog Video Union Volume 5 drop, coming up on January 30th. So this was released on Object. So as you can see, there's like more than I can keep track of here, but just more beautiful work here. Super rich textures from Inavare, as you see in this work here. So I think that's by Inavare. And here, this is probably, no, not the link there. That is the promo. And here's Koda Nakazono. This is from January 20th. I don't think we looked at this one. Continuum number 187. So 187 of these. That is amazing. So again, kind of the classic series here with the liquid up front and kind of a more slower moving static area or almost static area in the background. Great contrast here. This is 20 Tezos on secondary and edition of 5 selling out. Sky Goodman. How are we doing here? Only an hour. I think that's good. Sky Goodman, Climbing Out of the Murk to Find Myself. Cool title, and let's see if we can get this running. I sure hope so. See if the computer works here with these beautifully large pixels. Just a huge fan of these pixels here. And look at how well they contrast with the gradients in the background here. And I think we got it working. Interesting piece here. And there, maybe Sky there. Just an interesting piece, and love those pixels. How much is this? 10 Tezos, edition of 25. Quite a few selling. Pretty impressive. How many are left? And 8 left on primary. So selling well. And here is Sulkian again with a bug. And what sounds like Goa Trance. So pretty awesome as ever from Sulkian here. Keeping it interesting. I have no idea what Sulkian's going to do next, which is part of the charm. Parsa Mostagim. This almost looks like it could hang in the same show here. The meadow holds many secrets. So also, I suspect Sulkian's was CGI. This looks like CG. This is CGI as well. And here you see it on Instagram. Much more of a kind of, I guess this one is static. Much more of a kind of a, what shall we say, kind of sculptural, and I guess just kind of more, seemingly more, I guess polished, for lack of a better word, just across the careful gradients and everything. But I didn't look too close. But all to say, just very interesting work from Parsa Mostagim. This, of course, is Yoain. Good movement with great color. And another one of these awesome, I think, combinations of AI and digital painting, maybe a little bit of collage. Beautiful. Just super interesting. I like the, horizontal we don't use a ton of in this scene, generally speaking, because I think our phones are vertical, I suspect. So it's really refreshing, the horizontal works. This is beautiful here, too, by Lily Illo. AI artwork with gorgeous colors here as the person kind of sneaks through here of the triangles. So I assume AI artwork here from Lily Illo, interestingly. Bidala in that shrub, and I believe, this is just illustration. So this isn't pure AI, even though it kind of looks a little bit like AI. This is just illustration. This is on object. So here you see what look like maybe some birds, maybe some plants, a nest in that shrub. So illustration. I would have guessed AI, but not necessarily here. Mech.txt picking one up. So 3 Tezos, 285, edition of 20. And here are some interesting pieces from Mo SHIT. So the mouse at the grocery store, playing again with this stitching theme. I thought that was a pretty nice piece. This was pretty interesting here as well, kind of medieval feeling to this one as well, with these knights, and then maybe some livestock here and a car, interestingly. And here's another one. Just another far out kind of medieval inspired textile looking AI artwork with some interesting, just wild architecture here with the birds going through the sky. Pretty interesting. This is on codename Mechanical Solution. This is on Zora. And I think we have one more here. And this is also on Zora, I think called Poem 13. And of course I follow Mo. That is an X glitch. So interesting pieces there. And here it is on Zora. So, and here a couple of wild ones by No Hygiene, Migraine Eyes. And again, just kind of really edgy AI artwork. We'll see if it loads up here. Here we go. So interesting experimentation. 850 on primary, edition of 1. Here's another one. And this, Fruiting Brains, not sure if this was posted or minted, but another interesting, one-of-a-kind, unique AI artwork from No Hygiene. Here's 0009, Structural Threads, who I also follow. Almost looking photographic here. You wonder if this is like, Midjourney 6 or something. They almost look like photographs. But this, I think, is an AI painting. Interesting piece there. And here, of course, is Tukes with a really interesting landscape. As you can see, very faded colors, a sense of illusion. Beautiful title there. And off we go into the physicals. This is Amber Vittoria. So this looks like a physical artwork, especially as you look up close at the signature there. So interesting, kind of playing with some masking and maybe some airbrush, perhaps, or spray paint. Interesting piece. Here's an edgy work by Machine, playing with this chair. And I believe this is a painting, of course. Yes, so very edgy for the show here. And so interesting piece here. And by Nick, also super interesting. The SpongeBob character painted here in this, on fire. Just kind of an interesting painting here. Again, contemporary imagery. Baudelaire would be proud with the SpongeBob SquarePants here. Kind of beautifully painted here. Those videos are hypnotizing, aren't they? And here's Bonsai from Adam Lister's studio. We've looked a lot at Adam Lister's work. Very prolific artist here. And here's a bonsai, nice treatment. And of course, Donnie O'Donnell, another artist we've been looking at, a couple of cats in that totally recognizable style. 1,200 likes, doing really well here. And this was brilliant. HP Lovebucks, I believe, did this. Yeah. So, of course, looking like Vertigo here. Another just like hilarious drawing here. Remember Evel Knievel, same artist here. And, of course, this famous image, I think from Vertigo, if I'm not mistaken, by Alfred Hitchcock. So just a quick sketch from HP Lovebucks. And that is your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully I see you on the Twitter space in about an hour here. Until next time, take care.